What happens when a single journalist becomes the fault line between democracy, espionage, and the risk of war in East Asia, and why does this arrest matter far beyond Taiwan? This video uncovers how one detention is exposing hidden networks, strategic fears, and pressure points that stretch from Beijing to Washington and outward into the global system, without yet answering how far it will go. If this case escalates, it changes how Taiwan defends itself, how China tests red lines, and how journalists, soldiers, and intelligence agencies are viewed across the region. If it collapses, it raises doubts about deterrence and internal security. If it succeeds, it could harden Taiwan's counterintelligence posture at a moment when military balance and political timing are already fragile. Taiwanese prosecutors confirmed the detention of a television reporter and 5 current and retired military officers on suspicion of bribery and leaking sensitive military information to individuals from mainland China. The court order followed coordinated raids on multiple locations linked to the suspects. Investigators allege that payments ranging from several thousand to tens of thousands of new Taiwan dollars were exchanged for non-public military details. At current exchange rates, those payments amount to tens or hundreds of United States dollars, modest sums that highlight how low-cost intelligence collection can be when trust is compromised. The journalist, identified publicly only by the surname Lin by prosecutors, was later acknowledged by his employer, CTI, as Lin Chen-yu, a political reporter and anchor covering Taiwan's legislature. The network stated it had no prior knowledge of the alleged activities and emphasized the need for due process. Authorities did not specify whether the recipients of the information were directly connected to the Chinese state, only that they were mainland Chinese individuals, a deliberate ambiguity that reflects how intelligence cases are often prosecuted before attribution is finalized. To understand why this matters, it helps to step back. Taiwan has pursued espionage and corruption cases within its military for decades, but journalists are rarely implicated. That rarity is precisely why the case resonates. It touches freedom of the press, civil-military relations, and the persistent fear of infiltration at a time when cross-strait tensions are near multi-decade highs. Beijing considers Taiwan part of its territory and has never renounced the use of force to bring the island under its control. Taiwan, governed separately since 1949 after the Chinese Civil War, has evolved into a multi-party democracy with its own military, elections, and legal system. That unresolved status is the core driver of tension, and intelligence collection is one of the quiet tools used to manage or exploit it. In recent years, China has increased military pressure through air and naval operations around Taiwan. In the past year alone, Taiwan's defense ministry has reported hundreds of incursions by Chinese aircraft into its air defense identification zone. Last month, the People's Liberation Army conducted 2 days of large-scale drills encircling the island after the United States announced significant new arms sales to Taipei. Each drill tests response times, command resilience, and political resolve. Against that backdrop, Taiwan's internal security has taken on new urgency. Prosecutors cited suspected violations of national security statutes, anti-corruption laws, and regulations governing classified information. Raids targeted not only the journalist but 9 current and former service members, suggesting investigators are mapping networks rather than isolating a single actor. CTI's own history adds another layer. The outlet has operated online since its cable license was not renewed in 2020 by Taiwan's communications regulator, which cited repeated violations and a surge in public complaints. Although a court later overturned that decision, appeals continue, keeping the organization under scrutiny. None of that proves wrongdoing in this case, but it shapes public perception and political debate. One what-if scenario is escalation. If prosecutors substantiate the allegations and link the information flow to Chinese intelligence organs, Taiwan may expand vetting of journalists covering defense and politics, tighten access rules, and increase penalties. That could deter leaks, but also chill reporting, prompting domestic and international scrutiny. Beijing, in turn, could denounce the case as political persecution, adding it to its narrative of democratic backsliding, even as military pressure continues. Another what-if scenario is exposure without escalation. If the case reveals opportunistic information sharing without direct state direction, Taiwan could frame it as a corruption issue rather than espionage. That outcome would still reinforce the message that even low-level leaks matter, but it would avoid a diplomatic spiral. It would also underline how modern intelligence collection often relies on small payments and personal access rather than dramatic spycraft. The ripple effects extend beyond East Asia. South Asian states watch Taiwan closely because any conflict would disrupt sea lanes carrying a significant share of global trade, including energy shipments to India and Pakistan. A sharper Taiwan crisis would likely pull United States naval assets into the region, altering force postures across the Indian Ocean and affecting regional calculations from Sri Lanka to the Strait of Hormuz. In the Middle East, energy markets are sensitive to Asian demand signals. Taiwan is a major importer of liquefied natural gas, and instability there could tighten global supply, influencing prices for buyers from Japan to Europe. Gulf producers track these scenarios carefully because a conflict in East Asia could coincide with or exacerbate tensions closer to home, stretching diplomatic bandwidth in Washington and Beijing simultaneously. For the global order, the case underscores how competition increasingly plays out below the threshold of open conflict. Intelligence, influence, and legal systems become arenas of contest. Democracies face the challenge of defending openness without undermining it, while authoritarian systems exploit access and ambiguity. The outcome of this investigation will be read as a signal of Taiwan's capacity to police itself under pressure. Another dimension often overlooked is timing. Taiwan is approaching future electoral cycles, and security cases inevitably intersect with domestic politics. Even neutral prosecutions can be framed by rivals as selective or symbolic. Managing that perception is crucial because public trust underpins deterrence. If citizens doubt institutions, adversaries gain leverage without deploying a single ship or aircraft. That is why legal process, evidence standards, and judicial independence matter as much as counterintelligence outcomes in cases like this. International media reactions also shape the environment. How foreign outlets characterize the case influences investor confidence and diplomatic tone. Taiwan's economy is deeply integrated into global supply chains, especially advanced semiconductors. Any perception of instability can ripple through markets, affecting capital flows and long-term planning decisions by multinational firms that depend on predictable governance and secure information ecosystems. These subtler effects accumulate quietly, reinforcing why even limited investigations carry outsized strategic weight in an interconnected world defined by speed, perception, and cumulative risk under constant strategic competition globally.